Hello, everyone. I just wanted to give you a brief overview of women's issues in America, exploring the barriers of reproductive rights. Now, as far as history goes, the United States has always favored patriarchy, and it pretty much set expectations for women. During the 1900s, women were expected to stay at home, cook, clean, raise children, while the man goes out, works, and pretty much provides the income for the household. Now, these expectations led women to have little to no choice in doing anything else. By 1910, every state had anti-abortion laws except for Kentucky. Now, abortion, or the act of terminating a pregnancy, was criminalized, and laws often argued wanting to protect women. This was, a way to deter women from thinking about abortion. Self-induced abortions were very common during that time. However, there was not a lot of research that supported that there was high mortality rates from these self-induced abortions. Margaret Sanger founded the American Birth Control League in 1921. This was later renamed Planned Parenthood, as we are more familiar with. Now, by 1940, women were allowed to now purchase contraceptives. Abortion initiatives were established due to things like health risks from chemical exposure, emerging feminists, working mothers that may have not wanted multiple children, women with high-risk pregnancies, and even other organizations that were in favor of abortion, such as population control organizations or disease control. Now, first wave feminism often focused more on the right to vote. By the 1960s, second wave feminists sought to address issues related to contraception, abortion, sterilization, adoption, sexuality, and more. Now, the term reproductive politics was coined to capture how politics had an influence on women's reproductive health and really women's health overall. During the 1970s, court decisions such as Roe versus Wade helped women gain access to make decisions about their reproductive lives. Now, these rights that were put in place were based off of the legal concept of the right to privacy, which is in the Fourth Amendment. By 1977, many abortions were performed in free clinics. Now, the budget for women's health, has always had support from the United States, but recently they show a decline in the budget. And this has to do with the sectors of family planning and reproductive health. Now, the spending projections for 2018 was at about $408 billion. Currently, the Trump administration looks to cut Medicaid budget by 15% over the next 10 years. Now, many women are affected by these cuts due to 75% of public funding spent on contraceptive and family planning. And again, that is why most women are affected by these budget cuts. Now, funding for reproductive health care centers that offer abortions also will be limited and cut. According to the CDC, about 63.5% of women use some form of contraception, and these are women between the ages of 15 and 44. In 2015, 638,169 legal abortions were reported from women between the ages of 15 and 44. Now, the trends in 2017 show that there were about 3,855,500 births in the U.S. Of those births, 1,533,901 births were to unmarried women between the ages of 15 and 44. So as you see, there are a lot of women who are not married having children. Now, opposition groups grew, especially after the advancements that resulted from post-Roe era in the 1970s. Many people felt as though women were challenging the stability of a patriarchal society, especially with the right to abortion. Women were wanting to work, establish education, and, some women even felt they didn't need men. Many people turn to religion for organizing resistance. They felt that religious scriptures would, allow people to see that men are supposed to lead in the household and women are supposed to do those duties that were expected of them. Pro-Life Legal Affairs Committee was created after Roe v. Wade to work against abortion and public funding that supported abortions. Some parts of anti-abortion activism turned violent. They even have reports of doctors that performed abortions being killed, properties being destructed during these types of protests. And then promotion of abstinence-only sex education was something that was more popular within pro-life groups as a way to reduce unwanted pregnancy and also protect against sexual health. Now, barriers that exist are due to one of the proposed eliminations of the Title X, which is a grant that helps low-income families with family planning and preventative health. Also, there is a proposed cut of $6 billion in funding from a very profound research organization which goes by the name of National Institutes of Health. I believe, a lot of us are familiar with that from the research that we do. Also, biased counseling practices, waiting periods, consent through a third party requirements, and limitation on abortion options, have been put in place to deter women, such as, these counseling practices that they might go in and hear that there are a lot of negative mental health risks that come along with abortion, those types of things. And again, decreases in funding that would limit abortion access can also be a major barrier. Now, as far as social work implications, social workers must continue to advocate for women who are in need of reproductive and family planning services. They also must continue to conduct research that shows why women's reproductive rights should be protected. They must provide resources for women who feel they are facing multiple barriers when it comes to reproductive health. And they should also reach out within communities so that women and girls will be aware of where they can locate support. Thank you everyone for listening to my presentation.